a U.S. Marine and his loyal K-9 uncovered a heart-wrenching truth. Mom's silent absence revealed. Jake Thompson felt the familiar pull of nostalgia as he stepped onto the cracked pavement of Elm Street, the warm Virginia sun casting shadows that danced around him and Max, his K-9 partner. The air was thick with memories of childhood laughter mingled with unspoken absence. Each house carried the sense of old wood and the echoes of spirited play, but beneath it lay an unsettling emptiness. His mother, Sarah, once his guiding star, now existed only in fragmented memories. As he walked, he caught glimpses of old friends, their knowing glances heavy with unshared burdens. A few waved, their smiles strained under the weight of unsaid words. Jake's heart sank. Why didn't they say more? Had Sarah struggled so silently that even those closest to him felt powerless? The thought clenched around his chest, a tight band of confusion and guilt. Diners along the main street buzzed with life. The local cafe looked the same, a haven of warm pastries and friendly chatter. Yet the sentiment felt foreign now, burdened by the truth he'd come to learn only recently, a truth wrapped in whispers about financial hardship, desperation, and resilience. He had heard stories of how Sarah had fought fiercely to keep him afloat, all while hiding the depth of her struggles. She never shared the burden, Jake. She didn't want you to worry, an old neighbor had said, her voice steeped in sorrow. The words gnawed at him. Did that make her strong or blind? To shield him from reality while she fought her battles alone felt both heroic and cruel. As emotions roiled within him, the heat of anger flared. Had she even thought of him, of how he would feel now, standing on the edge of understanding? His hands clenched into fists, and he felt a storm brewing inside, questioning everything he believed about duty, family, and love. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, while Max trotted along a familiar path in the park, Jake stumbled into a gathering of neighbors. Laughter echoed, a sharp contrast to his turmoil. They'd all turned out for a simple barbecue, an effort to create community bonds, but behind the smiles lay the unspoken truth. His mother's sacrifices had ignited a wave of silent compassion. An elderly neighbor approached, her eyes glistening. We were all here, Jake, helping her through the dark nights. She was too proud to let you know. Jake almost stumbled back. Pride? It overwhelmed him, a tide of guilt scrubbing against his sense of duty. What kind of support was too weak to be acknowledged? And the deeper question, why didn't he know? It was as if his life had been a carefully curated story, one chapter hid by fog, obscuring love with silence. He felt betrayed. The very values he held, duty, loyalty, were entangled with this web of unspoken truths. With the shadows of the past looming larger by the second, one pressing question burned inside him. Could he reconcile the man he had become with the revelations of his mother's hidden struggles? The pain threatened to consume him, leaving him standing at a precipice of resentment and compassion, the echoes of his mother's love battling against the bitterness of her silence. He turned toward home, aware that within the confines of his mother's dusty attic lay more answers yet to be unearthed, a revelation that might shatter his understanding of family forever. Jake stood in the doorway of his childhood home, the attic door looming in front of him like an inscrutable fortress filled with secrets. Max nosed at his leg, sensing the unease radiating off his handler. The afternoon sun filtered weakly through the attic window, casting long shadows that reached out like fingers across the floor. Each timid step up the creaking stairs felt monumental, weighted with the gravity of what lay hidden within. As he reached the top, he had to force himself to push past the surge of trepidation threatening to paralyze him. Boxes stacked haphazardly filled the space, each one a silent witness to a life unseen. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, reminiscent of time suspended, each one representing a moment of his childhood overshadowed by untruths, canvassed in silence. He opened the first box, revealing old clothes, knickknacks, and photographs, all tokens from a once vibrant past. A stack of yellowed letters caught his eye, bound with twine, and a flicker of intrigue ignited within him. What words had remained unsent? What stories had been left untold? As he untied the twine, his hands trembled slightly. This was more than just curiosity. It was a quest for understanding, an unearthing of fragments that might piece together the mosaic of his mother's life. He began to sift through the papers, words leaping out at him like whispers from the beyond. "Dear Jake," the first letter began. It was filled with mundane updates but ended with a note that sent a chill through him. "You're the light of my life, and I cannot bear to show you my struggles. I want you to always remember the good days." The crack in his emotional armor widened. Had Sarah felt so acutely her burden that she believed shielding him brought love? Did she underestimate his capacity to share in her struggles? Or worse, did she believe her son would judge her? Frustration bubbled up inside him as he dug deeper. More letters. Each one unveiled Sarah's hidden battles, financial woes, health issues, feelings of inadequacy. It was a narrative of resilience, yet interwoven with a harrowing loneliness. He wasn't just confronting her past, he was facing his own ideals. Had his life, a soldier's regimented existence defined by duty, blinded him to the complexities of emotional sharing? The attic air felt oppressive as he navigated through memories packaged in faded boxes. Among the clutter, he unearthed pictures of his mother, radiant and smiling, masking what he now saw as an internal war waged in silence. The realization hit him hard. Sarah had been a warrior, not only for him but against her own demons, a valor that felt both admirable and tragic. As he pressed deeper into the labyrinth of memories, Jake faced an unsettling truth. This exploration was not merely about understanding his mother. It was a sobering confrontation with his own emotional limitations, with the walls he had built around himself to articulate his feelings. How could he carry the weight of service and honor while denying the vulnerability that came with love? Max nudged him gently, grounding him in reality. Suddenly, Jake's resolve solidified. He needed to act, to embrace this revelation. He wouldn't let fear dictate his actions anymore. Reconciliation hinged on confronting not only the shadows of Sarah's struggles, but also the silent barriers he had constructed within himself. With each letter he read, he recognized a framework for his own strength was being forged. To face the truth of his mother's life would demand introspection, potential confrontation with his past attachments, and a revolutionizing understanding of love, an invaluable gift she had tried to convey all along. Jake took a deep breath and stuffed the letters into his bag. He made his way down the attic stairs with a purpose. The ground beneath his feet felt firmer, the weight of ignorance lifting. He would return to the people who held memories, those who shared battles with his mother. It was time to unearth their stories too and emerge stronger, no longer obscured by the veil of silent truths. As he stepped outside, a realization simmered beneath his resolve. He had a choice to make, and it would test the very fiber of his being. The moment had come for him to face not just his history, but the pervasive silence that lingered in its wake. What awaited could change the trajectory of his life forever. Would he have the courage to confront the shadows lurking in the faces of those who had once known Sarah, and the painful truths they might hold? The journey was only beginning. Jake inhaled deeply, steeling himself before heading back to the street. The warmth of the sun was a dissonant contrast to the cold weight of his findings. Each letter he'd read echoed in his mind, and his heart raced with the urgency to seek out the people who had known his mother better than he did. He had questions that demanded answers, and answers that would require sensitivity from him, a skill he had simmered in silence too long. As he walked along familiar paths, memories melded with newfound understanding. He recalled each face he would encounter, neighbors, family friends, people he'd barely spoken to since Sarah's passing. They held pieces of her life that he'd never known, fragments that could fill the gaps of his confusion and sorrow. He was drawn first to Mr. Jenkins, an elderly neighbor who had lived next door for decades. A retired schoolteacher, Mr. Jenkins had always held a quiet kindness. Jake remembered playing in his yard, but that was years ago. Now it felt like a lifetime had passed since they last exchanged words. Jake knocked on the door, an unfamiliar anxiety creeping into his chest. The door creaked open, and Mr. Jenkins stood before him, a smile breaking through the weathered lines on his face. "Jake, it's good to see you," he exclaimed, his voice warm yet tinged with an unspoken pain. "What brings you back?" Jake forced a smile, feeling clumsy in the exchange. "I was just, looking to talk about my mom. I found some letters and, well, I want to understand more about her." The smile faded slightly from Mr. Jenkins's face, replaced by an understanding that spoke of shared grief. "Come in, dear boy. I think there's much we can share." In the dim lighting of Mr. Jenkins's living room, surrounded by photos and knickknacks that told stories of their own, Jake felt the tension unfurl slightly. He listened as Mr. Jenkins recounted tales of Sarah's youth, painting a picture of a vibrant woman who had once found joy in small moments. Stories filled with laughter that had dimmed over time due to burdens he had only begun to grasp. "She loved you fiercely, you know that," Mr. Jenkins said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I could also see the weight she carried. She often said she didn't want to burden you with her troubles. It's a great love, but it's also a tragedy." Jake felt the lump in his throat swell. How could he reconcile the image of the woman he loved with the idea of her hiding her struggles from him? Was this a feat of strength or a flaw, protecting him from the turbulence of emotion while quietly battling her own demons? After several poignant hours, Jake departed, his senses heightened. With each shared memory, he started to grasp the beautiful complexity of his mother, yet the deeper he delved, the more questions seemed to surface. Mr. Jenkins's honesty ignited a yearning in him to seek out others who could provide their stories, a tapestry of her life woven with contributions from many. He decided to visit Sarah's best friend, Lisa, next. They had grown distant over the years, but Jake remembered Lisa's comforting laugh and warm hugs, connections that made the threads of childhood feel vibrant again. As he approached Lisa's modest house, a sense of determination surged within him. This visit wouldn't just be about collecting stories. It would be about forging connections, reclaiming the emotional language he had long neglected. By confronting the complexity of his mother's life through the words of those who loved her, he was also peeling back the layers of his own emotional detachment. He knocked, and when she answered, confusion flickered across Lisa's face before she enveloped him in a comfortable embrace. "Jake, it's been ages. What brings you here?" "I'm seeking answers about my mom," he replied, no longer shy in his transparency. "I want to know her story, really know her story. Can we talk?" With a nod laced with an uncanny understanding, she ushered him inside. The journey ahead promised neither comfort nor ease, but Jake felt something within him shift. He was stepping into a realm where vulnerability intertwined with strength, a transformation that was already beginning to shape him. As they sat down, Jake's mind whirled with questions. Would their conversation reveal the truths he feared about his mother and about himself? The moment had come for a reckoning, and the stakes felt alarmingly high. He could feel the shadows stretching once more, but this time, he was ready to confront them head-on. What truths awaited him in the past, and would he have the fortitude to accept them? As Jake settled into Lisa's living room, the air thickened with uncertainty. The walls were adorned with photographs from brighter days, a testament to friendships weathered with laughter and tears. He didn't need to look at the framed memories to know what a pillar of support Sarah had been for Lisa. But now, those same images pointed to shadows that Jake felt compelled to understand. "Where do I even start?" Jake began, his voice tinged with hesitation. He had envisioned this moment countless times, yet the actual exchange of words felt daunting. Lisa leaned forward, her elbows resting on her knees. "Just tell me what you want to know, Jake. Your mom was special to us both. She shaped so many moments of our lives. I've been reading her letters. There's so much I didn't know about her struggles, about her fears," he confessed, the weight of his admission hanging in the air. Lisa's expression shifted. Empathy mixed with sadness washed over her. She always carried a lot on her shoulders, but she also had an incredible spirit. It's why she often hid her worries from you. She didn't want you to feel burdened by her pain. The emotional resonance resonated deeply within Jake. He thought about the years he'd spent unaware of the battles his mother had fought. Each revelation he received pressed against his own heart, urging him to reconcile the idealized image he held of Sarah with the reality she lived. What did she tell you? He leaned in closer, hunger for knowledge driving him forward. More than I can recall, Lisa said softly. But she often spoke about her dreams, the things that made her feel whole. She dreamed of traveling, of writing stories that would inspire people. And then life, got in the way. The demands of raising you, work, it overshadowed her passions. She felt she had to sacrifice so much. Jake processed this, grappling with the enormity of it all. The weight he felt intensified, not just for his mother but also for himself. What dreams had he neglected in his pursuit to support others, to shield them from his own uncertainties? Did she ever feel free? He asked suddenly, the question escaping before he could wrestle it back. Rarely, Lisa admitted, her brow furrowing. But I remember a summer when she seemed lighter, free even. I think it was the time when she started taking you on those camping trips. She loved the outdoors. You brought her joy she hadn't felt in years. Jake's heart clenched, a rush of warmth intermingling with guilt. He had understood those trips as simple family outings, moments of bonding, yet he now saw them through a different lens. They hadn't just been an escape, they were lifelines for his mother, strands of joy in a turbulent sea. If only I had known, he murmured, grappling with the notion of his own emotional blind spots. If I had listened more, maybe she wouldn't have felt so alone. You were a kid, Jake. Kids can't shoulder adult burdens, but you've grown, and now you're stepping into a space where you can learn. And it's not only about her struggles, it's also about you finding your voice. You need to confront your own shadows. There was wisdom in her tone, rekindling something buried deep within Jake. In this exchange, Jake found not just pieces of his mother, but also glimmers of his own path. Each story Lisa shared felt like chiseling at a wall he had built around his emotions, a wall constructed of fear and silence. Their conversation unfurled into a deeper exploration of Sarah's joys and pains, each layer revealing nuances that neither had contemplated before. As they reached the end of their discussion, a heavy silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the soft ticking of a clock. Jake had gathered something precious today, an understanding of his mother that broke his heart, but simultaneously inspired him to confront his own reality. Feeling invigorated, he stood up, overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, Lisa. You've given me so much to think about, but I also feel different, like I've unlocked something inside me. Just remember, Jake, understanding is just the first step. You need to act on it, she encouraged. As he stepped onto the porch, the shimmering sun seemed to bolster his resolve. Jake could sense the shift he had long sought. He was ready to venture further, to take actions that matched the knowledge he'd gained. This was more than about unveiling Sarah's truths. It was about discovering his own. And as he walked toward his car, he felt a burning need to delve deeper. There was more to uncover, other voices that needed to be heard. But who would he turn to next as he continued to unravel the intricate fabric of his mother's hidden world? With resolve ignited, Jake headed toward the next chapter of his quest, knowing the journey was only just beginning. Jake sat in his car, the engine idling but his thoughts racing. Lisa's words echoed in his mind, a symphony of emotions clashing together, renewed understanding, guilt, and a burgeoning desire to discover his own path. The sunlight poured through the windshield, illuminating a section of his mother's letters that lay on the passenger seat. He hesitated, fingers poised above the pages. What had she left unspoken? He needed to know more, not just about her but about himself. The drive home would become a reflection, a moment to confront the questions brewing inside him. With determination, he turned off the engine, opened the letters, and began to read. Every word held more weight than he had anticipated. As he unfolded each carefully written page, he discovered nuances of a woman he thought he already knew. There were dreams unfulfilled, moments of vulnerability hidden beneath layers of joy and maternal sacrifice. The revelations forced him to grapple with his own ambitions, those dreams he'd shelved under the guise of responsibility. He skimmed over the ink that danced across the page, detailing Sarah's longing for adventure, connection, and a life unchained by obligations. What had stifled her spirit was becoming a mirror reflecting his own life choices, a life lived on autopilot, driven by external obligations instead of inner passions. It struck him that he had always defined himself through the lens of what could help those around him, never daring to ask what he truly desired. He closed his eyes, thinking of those camping trips, the laughter they shared, and the serenity of nature enveloping them both. Moments that now seemed more profound, filled with unspoken love and connection. "I need to honor her," he murmured to himself. "Not by living for her, but by living for myself." The clarity was jarring. He needed action. But what would that look like? Jake shifted in his seat, a notion taking root within him. Perhaps it was time to explore those hidden passions. Could he write? Could he travel? The more he pondered, the more invigorated he felt. The responsibility to care for others would always be there. But now he understood it was equally important to care for himself. "Why not start small?" he whispered, pulling out his phone. A quick search led him to a local writing workshop, a place where he could breathe life into the words swirling in his mind. He felt an electric pulse race through him. This was the first step, a tangible way to unfurl the possibilities he had kept locked away. After registering, he found himself staring out the window at the street. The familiar landmarks felt new, almost foreign. It was as if he was seeing the world through fresh eyes, the mundane suddenly layered with vibrancy and potential. But would he truly have the courage to explore these dreams? Doubt hovered at the edges of his resolve. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he failed? Yet that fear began to morph into a challenge. He could either allow the anxiety to tether him to the past, or he could rise to meet this new version of himself. With newfound determination, Jake took a deep breath, vowing to confront those doubts head-on, knowing that this was only the first step. The deeper he dove into his own story, the more he could potentially illuminate the shadows of his mother's life. As he drove home, lifting his spirits, he thought of the next person he might approach. Lisa had offered him a glimpse, but he felt a stirring need to reach out to another, perhaps a relative or a friend of his mother's, whose story could weave into his own understanding. But who could help him dig deeper into those fragile threads connecting their lives? There was still so much to uncover, so many paths to traverse. With each mile, the weight shifted. He felt lighter, but also more driven than ever. The journey ahead was more than just a quest for answers. It was a commitment to himself and to honoring Sarah's legacy. With every heartbeat, it became clearer. The moment had come to face his own story, to explore the complexities of love, loss, and the uncharted path of self-discovery. As he turned the key to his apartment, anticipation pricked at him, tension building within. What were the stories waiting to be told, both his and those of the people connected to his mother? Tomorrow would bring new revelations, but for now, he sensed an emotional opening, a growing fire within that demanded attention. What would he learn next about courage and connection as he embarked on this ever-deepening journey? Jake awoke the next morning feeling a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The sunlight cascaded through his window, illuminating the stack of letters he had curled up beside, as inspiration lingered like a warm embrace. He paused before his daily routine, his mind buzzing with the possibilities of the writing workshop he had signed up for. What if he was meant to craft stories, to draw upon the pain and beauty of his experiences? The thought stirred an unfamiliar anxiety, creeping forward with whispers of inadequacy. He dismissed the notions, flexing his fingers, knowing he had to take a risk, one that could lead him closer to understanding himself. As he prepared for the day, Jake mulled over whom to approach next about his mother's life. A family member, a friend, someone who might hold fragments of a puzzle he had yet to solve. Names floated in and out of his thoughts, but one stood out above the rest: his Aunt Rebecca. She had always been a vibrant presence in their lives, someone who shared laughter and stories, but he hadn't spoken to her in years. Would she be willing to dig deep alongside him? The workshop was in the afternoon, which gave him a sliver of time to reach out to Rebecca. He grabbed his phone, his heart racing as he typed out a message. "Hey Aunt Bibi, it's Jake. Hope you're doing well. I'd love to catch up and talk if you have time." He hesitated over the send button, uncertainty bearing down on him. But then he tapped it, releasing the message into the ether. With a few hours to kill before the workshop, Jake decided to read a bit more of his mother's letters. Each page seemed to breathe life into the woman he had idolized, the quiet strength interwoven with her longing for connection. Her dreams were not just remnants of a past left behind, they were blueprints of the future he wished to create for himself. It was a personal revelation, carving a path through uncharted territory. As he dove deeper into the letters, he stumbled upon an entry that mentioned a trip Sarah had taken to a coastal town for a writing retreat. The details stirred a sense of longing buried within him. What if he could visit that place and write? Would that be his next step toward reclaiming the threads of his mother's lost dreams? Ideas were sparking like firecrackers in his mind, and with that igniting passion came a surge of determination. Time raced by, and before he knew it, he was standing outside the workshop, a quaint little gallery nestled between shops on Main Street. The energy was palpable as people buzzed in and out. Each figure he passed had stories etched across their faces, just waiting to be told. Jake inhaled deeply, steadying himself against the nerves fluttering in his stomach. Entering the space, he was welcomed by a wave of warmth and curiosity. He took a seat at the back, observing the room as the instructor began to speak. Their words flowed seamlessly, laden with inspiration and tools to unlock creativity. As Jake scribbled notes, he felt a newfound release, the pressure to conform to expectations eroding away. This journey was not merely about discovering stories. It was about carving out a space for his voice. Midway through the session, a prompt lowered like a heavy curtain across the room. Write about a secret longing. Jake's pen flew across the page, unfolding not just thoughts of travel and adventure, but of a deeper yearning. A quest not only to know his mother but to understand the shared legacy of vulnerability and dreams. But just as he began to unravel these layers, he encountered the creeping shadow of doubt surfacing again. What if sharing his truths made him vulnerable? What if his narratives fell flat? Scraping the surface of that fear required courage, an attribute he needed to embrace if he was to honor his mother's legacy and find his own. As he drove home that evening, the weight of the day settled on him like a soft blanket. The excitement was there, but so was a gnawing uncertainty. He had planted seeds in both his writing and his connections, but would he water them enough for them to grow? Rebecca's reply had come through earlier. "I'd love to talk. Let's meet at Joe's Cafe tomorrow." Jake's heart raced. If they met, would she unveil the stories he desperately sought? Tomorrow loomed with promise yet wrapped in tension. Would he be ready to hear what she had to say? The next day dawned, and Jake felt both the thrill of anticipation and the weight of his indecision. Every passing minute until their meeting felt intensified, a reminder that he was approaching a significant turning point. He paced around his living room, his mind racing with possibilities. What if Rebecca had answers? What if the missing pieces of his mother's narrative lay hidden in her stories? As he made his way to Joe's Cafe, he replayed their last encounter in his mind, every laugh, every shared memory. But what lay ahead was uncharted territory. Would they simply reminisce, or would they unearth deeper truths? Each question hung in the air, amplifying his tension. The cafe was buzzing with the sounds of clinking cups and soft chatter, a comforting backdrop that offered some semblance of calm. He spotted Rebecca seated at a table by the window, her signature curls framing her face as she looked over an old photo. He remembered that smile, one that always radiated warmth. As he approached, she caught his eye and waved, her expression brightening as he moved closer. "Jake, it's been too long!" she exclaimed, rising to hug him tightly. The gesture felt grounding amidst his chaotic thoughts. "It really has," he replied, settling into the chair opposite her. They exchanged pleasantries, but soon the conversation turned. Jake steered them toward why he had reached out. "I've been thinking a lot about Mom, and wanted to know more about her dreams and regrets." Rebecca's face shifted subtly, a hint of melancholy clouding her eyes. "Your mother had layers, you know. She was so much more than what crossed the surface." As Rebecca began to share stories, anecdotes of Sarah's hopes of being published, the events that led to her self-doubt, Jake felt a connection begin to strengthen, but alongside this connection surged a growing desire to dig deeper. The inclination to peel back the layers was rising within him, pulling him past the familiar comforts of nostalgia into uncharted emotional depth. The mood shifted as she mentioned a pivotal moment in Sarah's life, a failed attempt at a writing contest that had marked the start of her retreat into silence. Rebecca leaned in, her expression serious. She never forgave herself completely. It broke something in her, you know. But she had such a vast imagination. I wish she had trusted the world with it. That statement hung in the air, heavy with implications. Jake's heart raced as he realized how intertwined his mother's fears were with his emerging desire to write. The thought struck him like a lightning bolt. Was he on the brink of repeating her mistakes? Here was an opportunity to break these familial cycles. "Did she ever talk to you about her dreams?" he asked, heart pounding. "Did you ever try to encourage her?" Rebecca shook her head, her brow furrowed. "I never pushed, because I saw how fragile she was. I thought perhaps giving her space was best." Jake wrestled with another wave of doubt crashing against him. Was that the answer he'd rather avoid? Was he seeking redemption not only for his mother but for himself? A deadly silence settled between them as the implications circled like vultures, awaiting the right moment to swoop down. Jake cleared his throat. What if I could do it? What if I could finally finish what she didn't? What if I could carry forth her legacy? The intensity of his thoughts surprised him, setting his heart aflame. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. You could, but it won't be easy. You'll need to confront your own fears and insecurities head on. He nodded, a fierce determination igniting within him. It was becoming clear. His journey was no longer solely about discovering his mother's past. It was about forging his own path amid the ghosts of her unfulfilled dreams. The conversation shifted again, moving into realms Jake couldn't fully anticipate. They began discussing Rebecca's own writing aspirations, and as she spoke, he felt an organic connection strengthening between them that was both surprising and invigorating. They were pushing each other forward, stumbling upon the need for vulnerability in the face of fear. Yet as the cafe filled with animated chatter around them, another question whispered through Jake's mind. Would this newfound connection between them lead to clarity, or unearth buried tensions from the past? The potency of their exchange was palpable, and just when he thought they were onto a breakthrough, Rebecca lowered her voice, tension creeping into her demeanor. Jake, there's something important you need to know. Something about your mom that I never shared. Jake's breath caught in his throat. What could she possibly reveal that might change everything? The room around him faded, leaving only the urgent beating of his heart in his ears. Was he ready for this truth? Jake's mind raced, the sound of his heartbeat drowning out the cafe's ambiance. He leaned in, the gravity of her words anchoring him to the moment. What is it, Rebecca? He asked, urgency threading through his voice. Her gaze flickered away for a moment, as if searching for a way to articulate the impending revelation. When your mother withdrew from everyone, it wasn't just that failed contest, Jake. There was something more. Something she kept hidden. Something that changed her paradigm completely. He felt his pulse quicken. What are you saying? Did something happen? The questions tumbled out, a frantic need to piece the puzzle together. Everything he thought he understood about his mother now seemed to dangle precariously between light and shadow. Rebecca took a breath, her expression grave. Before she stopped writing, she received a substantial offer from a literary agent, a chance to publish. But when she learned she was pregnant with you, everything shifted. She was afraid, torn between the life she had always envisioned and the new reality. Each syllable she uttered seemed to unfold a new understanding within him. Layers of unseen struggle began to surface. The weight of his mother's unfulfilled ambitions bore down on him, but also sparked something bright and fierce, an awakening of sorts. She chose to give that up. The world she was part of felt hostile to her when faced with motherhood, Rebecca replied softly. She believed she couldn't be both a mother and a writer, that it was impossible. Jake wrestled with her words, grappling with the conflicting emotions that washed over him. Anger that his mother had kept this from him, sadness for the dreams she let slip away, and a profound realization that perhaps he could have been part of her journey rather than a hindrance. But why didn't she tell me? Why hold on to that? Fear, Jake. Fear of disappointing you, or the world. She thought she was protecting you from her own heartbreak. Suddenly, everything clicked into place, a connection forged through shared experiences. His own anxieties about pursuing writing felt eerily similar to her struggles, both frozen by the haunting specter of past choices. He felt indignant for her choices, yet liberated by the truth. No more hiding, he whispered, resolute. Rebecca nodded, her eyes softening. It's time for you to break the cycle, Jake. Don't let fear guide your decisions. Your mother silenced her voice, but you have an opportunity to amplify yours. The challenge was clear. This was not merely about uncovering his mother's memories, it was about harnessing them to forge his identity and legacy. A burning determination ignited within him. You're right. I can't let her sacrifices be in vain. I want to write and I want to do it for her, but I want to do it for me too. With each word, he was more certain of what he needed to do. The next step felt as pressing as the weighty history they had just unearthed. Yet there remained a flicker of uncertainty. He knew their conversation had sparked something deep and essential. But could he truly afford this pursuit? Would he be brave enough to confront his fears? As they delved deeper into this new understanding, his resolve began to crystallize, calling on the tools he had honed through careful reflection and the support of Rebecca. They spent the remainder of the afternoon discussing the creative process, strategies Jake could embrace to reshape his stagnant passion for writing. But as he leaned back, listening to Rebecca's animated suggestions while contemplating his next steps, a subtle unease crept back in. In their exploration of the past, had he inadvertently opened old wounds for Rebecca as well? Did she carry her own ambitions? Rebecca, he interrupted gently, what about your dreams? You said you had aspirations too. Why are we talking about my mother and not you? Her eyes narrowed slightly, revealing an inch of vulnerability. I lost my way once too, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It's easier to shine a light on others than to confront your own darkness. The layers of connection between them deepened, and the intensity of their shared struggle began to forge a bond rooted in mutual aspiration. Yet even as she spoke, Jake felt the somber tension linger in the air, an acknowledgement that opened the door to new possibilities, or perhaps precarious complications. Are you ready to reclaim your voice as well? He asked, the shift palpable in his heart. I'm trying, she replied, a hint of uncertainty lacing her words. Jake felt the shift again, the determination swirling within them both, the threads of their dreams intertwining in unexpected ways. In that moment, he understood the path forward was not only about facing his mother's legacy, it was about rallying together, confronting their struggles head-on. But why did a whisper of fear still linger? The weight of potential disappointment had been lifted, but a nagging thought remained. Could they both rise without falling into the traps of the past? As they stood to leave the cafe, an inaudible tension echoed. There lay an invitation for growth, but nothing was assured. Was Jake ready to join Rebecca on this journey to fulfill both their unspoken dreams, or would they falter together? The stakes had never felt higher, and with the unspoken weight of potential loss shimmering between them, Jake took a step forward, ready to redefine what it meant to pursue a legacy while grappling with the ghosts of their shared past. Jake could barely contain the tempest within him as he stepped outside the cafe with Rebecca. The chill November air stung his skin, yet he felt alive, pulses of clarity coursing through him after their life-altering conversation. The barely there veil of his mother's unfulfilled dreams weighed heavy, yet with each passing minute, it transformed into a mantle of responsibility, perhaps even empowerment. Let's go to the park, he suggested suddenly, needing a wide-open space to let the weighty thoughts swim freely. The park had always been a haven for him, a place where he first scribbled half-formed stories in his notebook beneath the shade of sprawling trees. As they walked, he stole glances at Rebecca, pondering her quiet strength. What had silenced her voice? Anxiety crept in, unfurling a new layer of guilt. Had he propelled her into a painful corner by unveiling his mother's past? Or had he inadvertently encouraged her to confront her own shadows alongside him? "Are you up for some truth-telling?" Jake broke the silence, turning to meet her gaze. Rebecca hesitated for a brief moment, then nodded thoughtfully. "Let's do it," she said, her voice steadying with purpose. "It's time." They settled on a nearby bench, the crisp air swirling around them. "I never really acknowledged how much my mother's choices affected my own decisions," Jake began, feeling his voice strengthen with each word. "It was always about what I thought was expected of me, following a path that felt comfortable instead of authentic. I kept stifling that urge to write, afraid it would disappoint her." The admission hung in the air, charged with vulnerability. He looked at Rebecca, searching for understanding. She nodded, clearly feeling the potency of his confessions resonating with her own hidden struggles. "I get that," she replied, her eyes reflecting a blend of empathy and recognition. "I chased the metrics of success in my career, ignoring my passion, convinced it would lead me astray. It's like I put my dreams on layaway." Jake's brow furrowed as he studied her. "What dreams?" A shadow momentarily crossed her expression, as if she was sorting through jumbled fragments of memory before finding the right words. "I wanted to write too, you know, stories of resilience, of finding oneself. But I got so swept up in the corporate grind that I hid those desires. It felt safer that way." The revelation unveiled a deeper connection between them. Two souls tethered by similar struggles, now seeking to reclaim the very essence they had hidden away. It was unfathomable to imagine Rebecca sharing his dreams, while simultaneously contemplating their collaborations. The threads of their ambitions intertwined yet again, tangible and vibrant. "Why do we listen so intensely to those fears?" Jake questioned, echoing his earlier self-doubt. "We're barely defined by anyone else's expectations." Rebecca sighed softly, almost in disbelief. "It's exhausting, to carry that weight of external approval. You know, I was afraid to show anyone my writing, fearing it wouldn't resonate. But what if," she paused, a flicker of possibility igniting in her eyes, "we wrote something together, something that merges our experiences?" The thought sent a rush of exhilaration through him. Could they transform their shared pain into creativity? The idea hovered before them, shimmering as a solution to the intricate maze of their fears. "I love that idea," he replied, his heart racing with excitement. "It would be a way to face our fears head-on." "Let's start today," she asserted, leaning toward him, an infectious spark of ambition igniting between them. No more putting it off. Yet in the back of Jake's mind, apprehension lingered. Was it truly this simple? Or were they embarking on a path riddled with risk? How many uncharted emotions might overflow during the process? He could almost see the pages waiting to be filled, ready to capture their voices in the collective narrative they were building. But alongside that expectation was the dread of exposure, a reminder that vulnerability came with its own price. As excitement surged through him, he became acutely aware of the fleeting nature of this moment. "Well, if we're going to write it, let's dive deep, beyond the surface," he suggested, half jokingly yet half seriously. "No holding back." Rebecca smiled, a glint of daring in her eyes. "I'm in. Let's embrace the chaos." The park stretched wide before them as the sun dipped lower, shadows lengthening around the sturdy oaks. Jake felt an undercurrent of determination flowing through him, fusing with the fear that threatened to pull him back. This new venture was theirs to shape, but the true challenge remained to face the unknown layers of their intertwined pasts. Together, Jake breathed in the sharp autumn air, a fresh resolve solidifying. What if this collaboration not only freed them both but also birthed something profoundly honest? Could they risk facing the discomfort together, turning wounds into words? He sensed the breeze shift, bringing with it a hint of possibility, fluttering through the scattered leaves around them. He felt ready to leap into the uncharted waters ahead, but encountered the familiar whispering doubt. As they exchanged their dreams under the shade of the trees, a realization emerged. The journey would test them, shake their foundations, and perhaps even unveil stories they had buried long ago. How far were they willing to delve, And would their partnership endure the searing fires of truth? With the first words hovering on his lips, Jake was both terrified and exhilarated. The moment of abandonment awaited, and he was at the precipice. Would they find freedom and risk, or stumble back into the shadows they fought so hard against? The direction of this newfound collaboration was equally exhilarating and unpredictable. Would vulnerability pave the path for their voices to rise stronger, or would they unravel from the truths waiting to be revealed? Jake sat on the edge of his bed, the fading evening light filtering through the blinds, casting elongated stripes across the floor. The fervor of the day lingered, fueled by the conversations that had unraveled. Rebecca's proposal hung in the air, threading through his mind. What if their collective stories became the catalyst for growth, not just for themselves, but for others as well? He had always been a protector, a dutiful soldier bearing the burdens of those around him, yet he realized that embracing his vulnerability and sharing his truths could create a different kind of foundation, one built on authenticity and connection. The prospect electrified him, igniting a sense of purpose he had long denied. The next morning found Jake at his kitchen table, his laptop perched before him, ready to transform thoughts into words. The letters from his mother lay scattered across the table like puzzle pieces yearning to form a cohesive picture. Each page held a facet of Sarah's dreams, her struggles, and her hidden bravery. This was his moment to honor her by allowing her voice to join his. He began typing, letters cascading across the screen, a narrative forged from a blend of memory, admiration, and the yearning for understanding. With each keystroke, he delved deeper into the emotions he'd long suppressed. The act of writing was cathartic, an exploration of themes that would bind him to his mother and connect him to Rebecca simultaneously. As he struck the final keys, the sun danced through the window, illuminating his creation. The story had morphed into an emotional testament, a tale of resilience interwoven with vulnerability, the very essence that defined both his mother and himself. His phone buzzed, revealing a message from Rebecca, brimming with encouragement. "Can we meet at the park tomorrow? I'd love to share what I've written." Thrumming with anticipation, Jake agreed. Their collaboration was in full swing, and he felt invigorated by the support they offered one another, two kindred spirits weaving through their fears together. This was no longer merely about writing. It had turned into a venture of reclamation, a revival of dreams long left behind. The following day, the park brimmed with life, laughter blending with the rustling leaves as Jake found Rebecca seated at their usual bench. She greeted him with an infectious smile, a warm hug that encapsulated the anticipation they both shared. "I've been working on something special," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. As she revealed her pages, the connection solidified. Two artists breaking through barriers, unlocking the truths they had both held captive for too long. They exchanged stories, each reading passages that honored their respective journeys. As Jake listened to Rebecca's heartfelt words, he realized the power of vulnerability. It carried the weight of both beauty and pain, a testament to their intertwined legacies. They laughed, cried, and found unexpected joy in the raw honesty of their narratives. "Do you think anyone will resonate with this?" Rebecca asked, her vulnerability painted across her face. "Without a doubt," Jake replied, his confidence bolstered by the energy of their shared endeavor. "This is more than just our stories. It's about healing and connection. If we can resonate with ourselves, we surely can with others." With newfound purpose, they set the foundation for their publication, determined to share their stories with the world. Jake felt the weight of his past lift as he embraced the opportunity to transform Sarah's hidden struggles into a source of empowerment for others. He envisioned readers connecting to the unfiltered truths, experiencing redemption through shared experiences, and finding the courage to confront their own narratives. As they delved deeper, they encountered obstacles, doubt, criticism, and harsh realities, but they embraced each challenge as a stepping stone, an opportunity for growth. Their partnership blossomed beyond the confines of fear, giving way to mutual encouragement, strength, and resilience. Months passed, their manuscript evolving from rough drafts into something tangible, something that carried the weight of their personal transformations. It was a reflection of their journey, wrapped in honesty and authenticity. Their collective voices called forth shadows of the past while paving a bold pathway toward the future. Finally, the day arrived to unveil their work. At a small local bookstore, Jake stood by Rebecca, facing a group of eager readers. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as he took a deep breath, ready to share the legacy of his mother and their own journey of discovery. This time he would not shy away from his truth. He would embrace it fully. As he began to speak, the words flowed like a river escaping its banks. This is not just my story, nor just Rebecca's. It's a tapestry woven from the threads of vulnerability, resilience, and courage. It's a testament to those who hide their struggles, and a celebration for those who find their voice amidst the silence. The applause that followed was thunderous and validating, washing over him in waves. At that moment, Jake understood the power of their reclaiming narratives. It was not about erasing the past, but rather illuminating it, shedding light for those still trapped in the shadows. The journey had reshaped him entirely. No longer was he merely a soldier. He was an author of his life, carving out a path of authenticity and purpose. As the audience engaged, sharing their stories of connection and struggle, Jake and Rebecca locked eyes, a silent acknowledgement exchanging between them. They had conquered their fears, proved that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a profound strength, and started a ripple of transformation for themselves and countless others. In that moment of shared joy, they understood the legacy of both Sarah and their own journeys: growth through authenticity. The seeds they had planted were flourishing, and as Jake stood there, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had embraced every fragment of his journey and had emerged, not just a conqueror of challenges but an authentically empowered individual. "Let's keep writing," he whispered to Rebecca, the spark of collaboration illuminating a path full of potential. With each story they told, they would continue to breathe life into not just their words, but into the souls of those who needed to hear them. This was merely the beginning. The world awaited their voices. It was time to raise them high. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.